Hi, I'm Parmy, and in today's video expect to learn what foreshortening is and how to use foreshortening inside Daz Studio to create art that is dynamic and pops off the page. So let's dive into this tutorial with 3 examples of foreshortening right now. So the first example here is from Hexagon comic here. This is the front cover of the actual comic here. So let's go through how foreshortening is used here. So foreshortening basically 101 is all about depth, making a pose dynamic, making something look interesting, adding drama to it from the camera angle, and also just making a mundane pose look very, very exciting, right? Very, very different. So that's what we're trying to do here. Very, very interesting. That's what we're trying to do here. So this is the front cover. Book needs to be interesting, right? Because unfortunately, books are judged on the front cover. Shouldn't be, but they are. Front cover needs to stand out. So how does foreshortening work in this particular front cover? So on the bottom here, we've got this main character here, Don, his name is. And you can see here, his foot here, his right leg, his right foot here is closer to the camera, right? Closer to the floor here where the camera is. So obviously it's a lot bigger here. And then everything else is a lot smaller here, right? Everything else in the further to the background, adding depth, perspective here is a lot smaller. So this adds depth to the scene here, to the actual artwork here, including this foot here, Don's foot here. The back foot is a lot smaller, not smaller than behind here, but definitely like you can see like the foreground here, the midground, and the kind of like the background here, right? You can see depth here. That's the most important thing. And what we also have here in this particular scene here is, in this particular artwork here, is if you have a look at the characters here, they're all looking up, right? All their eyes are looking up. All their eyes are looking up. The expression on their faces here, expression on the face here, expression on the face here, all are looking up. And what that is doing here, because the camera is like a worm's eye view as well, it's looking up, forcing you to look up, and then you get this image of a spaceship here that seems to be overpowering the top half of this particular artwork here. So that's what it's forcing you to do. And the only character that is oblivious to what's happening is this one here, who's enjoying his video game, as most people like to do, play their video games in the arcade, right? You're enjoying your game and you're not paying attention to anything else but these 3 characters. 1, 2, 3, see this looming thing above. So that's a very like minimalistic use of foreshortening, but it gets the effect right. It makes the front cover look interesting, and it makes you want to look through the book, right? So it gives you the first impression of, this is a interesting book, what's happening here, let me go and pick up this comic, let me kind of flick through the first few pages, see if I like it, and then go and buy it. So moving on to example number 2 here, which is from the Manga Promised Neverland volume 2, and we're going to focus specifically on this side here, this page here, right? Because you can see straight away a very extreme example of foreshortening in this chapter splash page, right? So what manga usually do is they have like a chapter splash page before they get into the story. This is what they like to do. So here we have this character here, Crone here, and you can see straight away foreshortening being used. What's the largest thing nearest the camera here? It is a hand here, very, very huge hand, right? Very, very big hand here that is almost coming out of the book, right? Is looking like it's going to grab you. That's what it's trying to do. Got my attention straight away when I was reading. I was like, hold on a minute, what's going on here, right? As I'm reading this book, reading this manga, I saw this splash page and I was like, what is going on? This got my attention straight away, right? This particular panel here, this page here. What we've also got is the objects that are further away from the camera. So for example, the foot here, a lot smaller. Same with the hand here, right? It's a lot smaller as well, and the head as well obviously is going to be a lot smaller, and this character is leaning in and trying to grab someone. So what this is trying to do here, what the context of the story here is if you don't know, is they're going to play tag, right? This is from the perspective of the child in the story. So if you're seeing this character trying to grab you, this is what it will look like. The hand will look really, really big, and certain proportions look really, really big compared to you from your point of view. Again, this camera angle is kind of like almost like coming from down below. So it's looking up as like a child would be looking at an adult. And there's a lot of like energy to this page as well, right? With the speed lines here, the manga speed lines that they always like to use here. And the way it's like the energy is used here as well with here. And these kind of like energy where the actual foot is showing you kind of like speed as well. They do this on purpose to make this page look more dynamic. So they've taken a kind of like a pose where you can have someone picking something up and made it very dynamic, very exaggerated using foreshortening. And manga do this a lot, right? Manga love anime, they will literally use foreshortening to the extreme, and this is used in the extreme obviously here, and it makes this page look absolutely amazing as a chapter break page, right? So that's something you can do obviously inside Daz Studio as well. So that's another way of thinking about foreshortening, an example of foreshortening, an extreme example of foreshortening. On to example number 3. This is from anime of Jujutsu Kaisen. This is the ending sequence. So during the first arc of the episodes, this is the ending sequence that plays after an episode is finished. And this struck out to me straight away because this scene here with featuring our character Yuji, the main character here, is just Yuji eating, right? It's kind of a boring scene, but what they've done here is they use foreshortening, they've used other camera techniques to make it interesting, and that's what it's all about. It's taking the mundane pose of something that a character does mundanely, but making it interesting. So what's happening here is we've got foreshortening in this particular animation sequence. You can tell it's foreshortening because our character Yuji here, head is big here, so it's nearer to the camera. This bowl here obviously is a lot smaller, and then you've got the hands here which are a lot smaller as well. So you can see depth, right? That's what we're trying to see here. We got depth here. We can see that the camera is giving us that depth here. What the camera is also doing is the camera is up above. So if you look at the previous one, the camera is lower down, right? It's looking up here. And then even the one before that, the first example, the camera was looking below and pointing up, almost like a worm's eye view. This shows you that you can do foreshortening from any angle, right? You can do it from above and make something look interesting. And what else they've done as well in this particular scene is they have X rotation, maybe a bit of Y, not Y rotation, Z rotation here to get this angle here so it looks more interesting. So this is why I love watching Japanese animation, anything from the East, because they're always thinking creatively, right? The innovation is there. In Western society, we don't have innovation anymore. It's just gone, right? This is why I look towards Japan, why I look towards anime, why I look towards manga to increase my skill set. See what they're doing, see what works, see why it works, figure that out, and then think about how can I add this to my artwork, how can I add this to my storytelling to make my storytelling stand out. Because obviously with Daz 3D, it's a lot of static images with 3D. Obviously I know you can do anime now inside Daz Studio, but still you've got to make those poses dynamic, right? You've got to make it look interesting. It can't just be static because that's boring, right? Anybody could do that. You've got to make yourself stand out from the crowd, and that's what we are learning in this tutorial. So let's jump into Daz Studio, where I'm going to show you 3 examples of foreshortening that are going to help you to improve your artwork and make you a better artist. That's what we're all about here. So let's jump into Daz Studio right now. So here's the first example of using foreshortening inside Daz Studio. I'm using Daz Studio 4.15 by the way, which is the older version, but whatever I'm showing you in here will translate to any latest version of Daz Studio, so don't worry about that if you're using the latest version of Daz Studio, which at the current time I believe of doing this tutorial is 4.24. So here we have our character here with a generic pose, okay? So what I would do when I had my old thinking, when I didn't understand foreshortening, I didn't have any idea of camera angles and all this stuff, what I would do with my old thinking, right? This is my old thinking if I was doing it, is I would just literally move the camera and kind of place my character something like, I don't know, something like this, right? I would have it something like this, okay? Where actually, you know what? I wouldn't even be doing that. What I would do is, because I was old thinking, right? Is I would literally have, let me see, I would have my character like this. I would try to get every single part of the character in the scene. So I would try to get their head in the scene. I would try to get their feet in the scene. Every portion of the character in the scene, all right? This is the way my old thinking was. When I first started Daz Studio, I was thinking I gotta get every body part of the character in the scene. That's the old thinking. That's the very, very old, basic thinking that I had, right? Maybe this is where you're starting as well, right? You're starting and thinking I gotta have every portion of the character in the scene. And that's not true. In order to add the kind of creativity, make that pose look unique and make something look different, right? Make something stand out, make it look dynamic. You don't need to have every part of the character in the scene, okay? You don't need to have that. And that was my thinking in the beginning. But now with my new thinking, right, this is like, that was like 2019, 2020 thinking. What are we now? 2025 is time of recording this video. So that's 5 years worth. Let me show you progress, all right? So where's my progress now? So what I'm going to use is I'm going to use the thirds guide here to help me to create the proportions I need to make this more interesting, this pose interesting. And what I'm going to do is I want to see what I can do with my camera, right? So let me just see what's more interesting. So obviously camera angle from here, I mean, this could kind of look interesting, right? But not really. I want to show off Bruce Lee's abs and all that stuff. So I want to show my character, Bruce Lee here, character here. I want to show off his physique. That's what I want to do. So as I'm thinking, I'm like, okay, what else do I want to do? I want to use these guidelines here to help me. So what I'm going to do is move my camera here. So I haven't used the foreshortening yet, right? I haven't used that technique yet. So I want something like this. I know from experience, I know from watching anime, learning, is that you don't always want the camera straight on, right? You don't want it straight on like this. That's boring. Okay, straight on like this. This is boring, right? It's yes, sometimes you can have it. It looks kind of cool, but no. You'll notice in the majority of anime, the majority of, well, I notice it anyway, in majority of manga, even like some other art forms, you'll see like, even in just like general pinups as well, even like of characters, even in video games, you'll see the same thing. You'll see the character kind of like at an angle like this. They're looking at something and you've got the camera angle like this to give depth, right? This is why they do it. So I would have something like this, for example. So I'm happy like cutting off particular portions of the camera, of the character, because I want to show this top section here. That's another skill need to learn as well. There's particular sections where you can cut off characters where it looks okay. That's a tutorial for another time. I would go something like this. Okay, so this is kind of like my kind of like thinking. I would have something like this. This looks more interesting. Just leaving the pose as it is. I'm not going to change anything with the pose. I could be here hours trying to sort the pose out. So this is the basic standard pose. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go to my camera here, click in my scene here. This is the camera that I'm working with. And then I'm going to go to parameters and camera. And what I want to do now is I want to look at focal length here. Focal length here is what we need to change in order to give us the foreshortening effect. What you need to be mindful of is when you are changing the focal length, there are extreme values. Okay, so currently it's set to 65, which is supposed to simulate what you see from a camera, like a normal camera. So that's what it simulates. What you see from everyday TV, everyday camera, everyday photography even. And so what we need to do to make the foreshortening effect is we need to decrease the value. So I usually start off with a value of 35, which is like a baseline value that I start off with. And then what you need to do is start to zoom in. Because I've already got my pose idea. I've already kind of framed where I roughly want my pose. I can zoom in, right? So what this is doing now is this is making my pose a little bit more interesting, right? You can see that this arm here has gotten bigger. This hand's gotten bigger here because it's closer to my camera. This one here has gone slightly smaller and the character's head is slightly smaller as well. Now, obviously you can take it to extremes. At the moment it's 35. And if I bring it down even more, right, and then zoom in even more, so now it's like 17 millimeters roughly focal length, and now I zoom in, now it's kind of getting a bit ridiculous, okay? So you can see the arm length here is a lot more bigger here, that's a lot more smaller, the foot here is a lot smaller, and the head obviously as well is a lot smaller as well because it's further away from the camera. So you have to be mindful of how you use the focal length. You don't want to go to extremes like this where you're going to like 6 millimeters, and now you're zooming in and now it looks a bit kind of like crazy, right? You may want this effect when you have a particular scene. Let's say your character is drunk, or you're looking through some sort of like mirror world, right? You're looking through a mirror world and you see all these like weird mirror effects. Maybe you can have that there. There's a time and place for that, but generally you don't want this effect. This is a very, very special cases where you want to go to the extremes, as with anything inside Daz Studio. So I'm going to put this back to 35. And then I'm going to zoom out. So 35, I could probably even push it and go to 30. Let's see what 30 looks like. These are like pretty decent values to start off with. I would definitely start off with 35, 30. Maybe you could even go down to something as low as 25. Let's see what that looks like. where it doesn't get a bit too ridiculous. Yeah, even 25 doesn't look too bad actually. Yeah, we'll leave it at 25. Could leave it at 25. There you go. Okay, so let me do my render preview. Let me get rid of this third guide here, so we can have a quick look at our character. There we go. Right, doesn't look too bad. Looks far better than the generic pose we had before. Makes it look more interesting, right? And then also with the lighting I've got here, we can see like the definition of the abs here. Got the shadows here adding to the abs and everything, which looks really, really cool. Before you move on though, you need to understand is when you are manipulating the focal length, the depth of field needs to change as well. So let me go back and put this camera, stop it from hiding. Let me go and put the depth of field down. Let me go to my perspective camera. Let's click on Bruce Lee, center him, there we go. So let me see here with the focal distance here. I need to move this, right? So you'll see that with the focal distance here, you'll need to move that. I want to get my character's face. I may want some of this front part of the hand here. So let me see what that looks like. Do a quick preview. So the more extreme you are with the focal length, the more you will need to adjust the f-stop here to make sure you make this, your depth of field is correct. So at the moment it's kind of blurry here. I don't want that. So I'm going to increase the f-stop to something like 50. That looks a bit better now. Let me go back to my perspective here and see what that looks like. So I want something like this. Go to the camera. That looks pretty good. So I got a bit of Bruce's kind of like face with the eyes, and I've got this section here over here, and let's see what that looks like now. So let me go to the camera. Yeah, that looks about what I want, right? So be mindful when you're moving the focal length, the f-stop is going to be very, you might need high values of f-stop depending on how much focal length you use, and the focal distance as well will have to change significantly. You'll have to experiment with the focal distance and the f-stop to get the effect you want, because when you start moving the focal length and doing the foreshortening, if you want depth of field, it's really going to change these values significantly. That's foreshortening to make this character look more interesting. Let me show you what it looks like without. So let me go to the standard one here. So let me just hide these cameras. There we go. So this is the standard like camera, right? This is the camera that has the normal focal length here. So I'm sticking on the camera here in the scene tab, going to my camera here, and I see the focal length here. See how it's 65mm here, and I haven't touched this at all. This is what it would look like. Looks okay, you know, it doesn't look anything amazing, but looks okay. And then the focal distance, look at the focal distance. You can see the focal distance values are completely different to what we just showed you with the camera I was working with. And let me show you the other camera FS, which is with the foreshortening technique. So this is with the foreshortening technique here. And let me just click on the camera here to show you the settings. So for this one, I went with focal length 32.5. So you can see the focal distance is 60 and the f-stop is 60 as well. What I went with. This is the difference, right? You can either have it like this, which looks okay. There's nothing wrong with it per se. But I think this one looks far interesting, more like dynamic, the pose. This hand being here, this more closer to the screen. It looks like it's going to jump out of the image, right? It's going to jump out of your render. That's what we kind of want with our artwork. We want it to be more dynamic, be more dramatic, especially when you're doing like single renders like this. So if those of you that are doing like single renders, where you could be doing like female renders or male renders, and you want to show this off, you could even use this as a splash page. You could even use this as a front cover page, right? It looks interesting. When somebody sees this, they're going to be like, okay, this person's doing something interesting. It's going to catch the eye, right? If you saw this image here and then compared it to this one here, it was right next to it, which one would you go towards? So that's foreshortening when you're just using a single character. Let me show you now in the next example of foreshortening with two characters. So go check out our Kickstarter campaign for Tiger Dragon the Rebirth. Link is in the description down below. Link will also be in the pinned comments as well. Go hit that link. Go check it out. If you want a heroic story that's going to entertain you, empower you, inspire you, Tiger Dragon the Rebirth is for you. Go and hit that sign up button. Go and get notified so you don't miss out when we go live, and get yourself a heroic story that's going to entertain you, empower you, inspire you. Here's the second example here where we're going to apply foreshortening to 2 characters in a scene now. And what this scene is actually from is from GeoShell's tutorial that I did all the way back in 2020, I think it was. So this is the Incredibles GeoShell's kind of like clothing that I created for them. So that's what I've done there, my interpretation of Mr. Incredible and Elastigirl. I've got my camera here. Now again, let's go back to my old 2020 thinking. What is my old 2020 thinking doing, right? When you first start off with Daz Studio, it's like, let me get the whole character right in the scene. So what I would do, again, I would go and literally just trying to centralize the characters. I wouldn't even put them to one edge. I would centralize the characters. So even with the 16:9 kind of like frame we have here, I would just try to centralize the characters. So this is what I would do. This is my thinking from 2020, right? I'm trying to show you my progress. Hopefully you'll start to see your own progress and start to see like, hey, I used to do this before. Now I don't do this. I do this instead. And I'm showing progress. That's what the whole point of this kind of like tutorial is all about. And all the tutorials I do is to be like, okay, are you making progress? This is a way to see if you're making progress yourself in your artwork with Daz Studio. This is what I would have done. I would have probably done this. Well, I know I would have done this. So I would have centralized the character, something like that. I would not even change the rotation of the camera. I would have just put it straight on. This is my thinking from 2020, right? But now let's move on to my thinking in 2025. How do I think when I'm creating a scene? So this will give you an idea of to improve your thinking, and when you're trying to create your scenes, how can you always be learning and always be thinking, how can I do something differently to get a different result? We're going to use our guide here, thirds guide. Like, don't disregard this thirds guide. I'm sure a lot of you probably don't use the thirds guide. If you do, good, right? Use the thirds guide. It's there to help you. So use that thirds guide to help you. That's what it's there for. Don't disregard it and think like, oh, it's just like something I don't need to use. I can break thirds guide. I'm like, no. When you start using Daz Studio, use the thirds guide. It's so going to help you so much. It helps me so much still to this day. It's like a foundational element of Daz Studio when I'm creating my scenes. I always put the thirds guide on to give me a guide. That's what it is, right? It's a guide. It helps me. And if something helps you to get better, then why not use it? Camera here, this one I'm using the normal camera here. As you can see, the scene tab. The focal length is set to 65. So I'm using the standard focal length. I haven't put foreshortening at all. So what I'm going to do now is zoom in a bit. Because again, I'm not afraid of cutting off particular portions of the body. Because I'm trying to do something specific with this artwork, right? Trying to get emotion, trying to get something here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to move my camera up here. And I'm going to, I mean, I could have my camera going down like this, but I don't think that looks flat. And it doesn't look that good in terms of the camera looking up here. I would say it looks better if we had the camera going, them looking upright. So the cameras, they're looking at the camera, but the camera's higher up. Again, this is like that example we had earlier on where Yuji, the camera for Jujutsu Kaisen, that example that I showed you earlier in this tutorial where the camera was upright. So I'm showing you that I'm using what I'm learning, right? I've seen that example. Now let me apply it, right? Don't just see something and be like, you know what, I'll do it later. No. As soon as you see something that is interesting, you've got to apply it to see if you understand that knowledge, right? You've just learned something. Do you actually understand it? Go and apply it. And then you'll see where the holes are in your learning, your thinking, your processes, and you can work from there. So let's do something like this. I mean, I could do something like that because she's kind of like looking this way. So this is kind of like my basic setup. This is what I like to do way before I even touch focal length. Is I'm thinking about framing first. I'm always thinking about framing. How do I want to frame this particular scene? What do I want to show? So let me see something like, because they're kind of like looking to the left anyway, so we can have the camera kind of looking that way as well. Something like that. I can probably have it looking, I want to see the eyes a bit, so maybe it's going to be a bit like this. Okay, so you can see that my focus is more like on Mr. Incredible here, less on Elastigirl, which is fine. Plus we also see the height difference. It kind of gives you the height difference, right? Mr. Incredible is far taller compared to Elastigirl, so we can see the height difference between the two characters. Okay, so I'm going to go to my parameters camera for this particular camera. Focal length, again, I want to start off with 35, okay? 35 is like my starting point for everything, and then I move from there. So let me zoom in now. and see what we get. So as I am going through this, again, I want to like not cut off his hair particularly. I want to keep that so as much as I can. I think I'm going to do the focal length to 30. Let's see what that does. Yeah, I'm pretty happy with that. It's not the best, right? This is me doing it in real time with you. Obviously, the example I'm going to show you in a bit, I spent a lot more time going through it, but this is me working in real time, showing you my thinking, my process, so you can learn from this. So again, I'm using the thirds guide. He has my guidelines. I kind of like want my characters on this particular line here, the kind of main area, which is the face, and the face here as well. It doesn't have to be perfect, right? It's not exactly on the points, but again, it's a guideline. Use the guideline, it's there to help you. So yeah, I'm kind of like happy with that. That's fine. We're kind of like looking down and we can see the focus is here on our characters. Again, with the depth of field here, I'm going to turn it on. I'm going to go to perspective view here. Let me just turn off the thirds guide because sometimes that gets in the way. And what do I want to show? So let me see. I want to show, obviously I want their faces. I want their faces because that's what I want to look at when we're looking at our characters. I want to probably turn this a bit more bigger. So let's try 50 f-stop and see how that looks. Yeah, that looks okay. Let me go back to the camera here. Let me do a preview. So you'll see when I do the preview, it looks kind of like weird as it goes into the iRay preview mode. You'll see all this like stuff here. This is the actual geo shells. So these are all geo shells, believe it or not. And as I'm waiting for this render to kick in, there we go. Okay. Doesn't look too bad. Looks, I think, a lot better than what we had originally, where I would just have it straight on. It looks a bit more dynamic. So this is me doing it in real time. It's very like minimalistic in terms of the foreshortening, but the effect is there. So let me show you, turn that off. Let me show you the standard, kind of like what I did earlier. So if you go to the standard camera, this is what I did with the camera here. Let me go to that camera, click on standard here. This is the one. Go to my camera here in the parameters, show you the settings for this particular one here. So what I've done here is, again, I have used the thirds guide here, right? Kind of like to put the off center here of this area, of this particular guidelines here. Let me just turn that off. And you can see the focal length for this one is 65, the focal distance again, and the f-stop here. So we can see here, you can see like the musculature of Mr. Incredible, and we can see like the slimness of Elastigirl. That's what we're trying to go for. That's what she is. The flexibility of Elastigirl here. The issue is Elastigirl seems to be looking in a different direction, right? Whereas we've got Mr. Incredible kind of looking in this direction, kind of like looking like that. Elastigirl's kind of looking like this. What's going on? So the reason is, I'm going to show you right now, is when I go to the camera with the f-stop settings. So the camera with the focal length settings, or the foreshortening settings. So I've just clicked on the camera with the FS in my scene tab. I'm going to go to the parameters and camera and show you the focal length. Here I decided to go with 30 here. That's my focal distance and my f-stop to give me the depth of field. And now it looks like Elastigirl is looking at the camera, right? Looking exact same position point as Mr. Incredible. Why is that? So sometimes what will happen is when you are using multiple characters in a scene and you've got the foreshortening effect, sometimes it affects where the character looks. I haven't moved the character at all. The character is still in the same position, right? Still in the same rotation as before. I haven't moved the character. Sometimes the foreshortening effect will move the way a character looks, right? So at the moment, in the standard camera that we had here before, see the way both the characters are looking? They're kind of like looking like this and looking like that. When I've done the foreshortening effect, you can see the way the camera's moved. Okay, not the camera's moved, the actual characters have moved, but I haven't actually moved the rotation at all. So that's something to be mindful of. This is why I wanted to show you this. So when you see this happening in your scenes and you're using the foreshortening effect, and you're thinking like, why is the character moved, right? Sometimes the foreshortening effect does that. It's something, that's what the camera does, okay? Now, I think this looks really, really good. Why does this look really, really good? Again, the camera is from up above, like we had in that example number 3 in Jujutsu Kaisen, Yuji. So the camera is up above, not from down below. And they're both looking at something, right? So it gives you it looks like they're looking at something. What are they looking at? If this was in a comic, turn the page right, what are they looking at? And obviously with the foreshortening effect, it does two things. First thing, it also shows the musculature again of Mr. Incredible, how big he is, how strong he is, how powerful he is. Love that, right? Very masculine. We don't see that a lot these days in storytelling at all. And then we have the opposite here. We see obviously Elastigirl here, a lot shorter, a lot smaller. She's a little bit, not really further away, but to the side. And she's not bulky, right? She's slim. She's feminine, right? We don't see that a lot as well in storytelling as well. So we're getting both of the elements correct here, which I feel we are doing with the foreshortening effect. So a question you could be asking is, Parmy, this is all well and good when you're just creating solitary artwork, but what if you're creating a comic, a panel? How do you use foreshortening in that instance? I'm glad you asked that question, because guess what? I create comics and I've got the answer for you. I'm going to go back to one of my old scenes from my book, Tiger Dragon the Rebirth. I'm going to go into that, I'm going to pick a panel out, and I'm going to use the foreshortening technique to make that panel more interesting, more dynamic, and enhance the storytelling of that particular scene as well. So let's jump into that right now. So here is Tiger Dragon the Rebirth. This is the opening part of the story, the sequence here. And the panel I'm going to change is this one here, which is page 1, panel number 2 here. This is the one I'm going to change. I already have an idea of how I'm going to change this, how I'm going to make it more interesting. So let's jump into that Daz Studio right now and show you. So here we are in Daz Studio, and here is the exact same panel here. This is exactly how it is, right? The way you just saw it. This is how it is, apart from the finger being cut off. Obviously, the finger is not cut off here. How can I make this more interesting with the foreshortening technique? Let me go and do that right now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to, this is camera number 6 I'm going to be using. So let me go to the parameters and show you the camera here. You can see here the focal length is set to, I'm going to turn on depth of field. The focal length is set to 65 here. Okay, so 65 mil, which is the normal. So let me turn this around here. And what I want to do is, I know that this story, right, she's speaking to someone who's on the floor, which you can tell from this panel here is this character here, okay? She's speaking to this character here, Tatsu, her brother. And it's not very clear that even though she's pointing down to him, he looks like he's on the ground, but he doesn't show it that well. So how can I show it from this character's perspective? So let me go back here. So what I want to do is I want to move the camera down, looking up, almost like a worm's eye view. So that's what I'm going to do. So let me go and do that now. Again, I'm going to use my thirds guide here to help me. So I love my thirds guide. It's my BFF. Most underrated tool probably inside Daz Studio is the thirds guide, because it's so simple. It's a basic thing. I guarantee you most people don't use it because it's so basic. But guess what? It's the basics that make you better. Understand the basics, understand the foundations, master those. You can then build on that foundation, right? That's how you become great. So this is what I want to do. I want her to be pointing right at him. She's looking down. So this is a perspective from Tatsu. He's on the floor. She's looking down. Now also what I'm doing, because this is going to be a panel in my comic, right? I also need to make room for the word balloon. So where is this word balloon going to go? Because I can't just like zoom in right up close like this, okay? Zoom in this close, because I need room for my word balloon in this panel. So I'm always thinking about that as well when I'm creating my panels. I'm thinking like, where is this word balloon going to go? I need to give it enough room for the dialogue that's going to be there. So that's why I'm always thinking as well. So in this case, I know the word balloon is going to go kind of like on the left here. Again here, I don't like what I'm doing here. This is too straightforward, too straight on. I don't like it when it's straight on, because again, it looks kind of boring, right? So I know I'm using that word boring a lot. What I want to do is make this pose dynamic. So I'm going to rotate my camera down like this. Maybe look up a bit higher, shall we? She's pointing down to maybe something like this. Something like this, I think looks pretty good. I might move the pose here actually to compensate. So this looks pretty good at the starting point. I like this. She's pointing down here, so you get the idea that she's pointing down at someone. It gives it more gravitas to the scene, more drama, right? We're looking up here. And what I'm going to do now is change the focal length of this. So again, I'm going to start off with my magic number 35. Don't know why, because that seems to be a good starting point. You need a starting point value. You need a value to start off, something to work from, and then you can move from there. So always like find a value that works for you that you want to start from, and then work from there. So there's 35 focal length added to the camera here. I'm going to zoom in now. So let me zoom in here. That looks pretty good, right? I don't want to cut a finger off this time, so learning from my previous mistake here. Something like that looks pretty good. I want the finger, the hand rather, to be like on the intersection here, on the actual intersection between the the rule of thirds here. Roughly on there, right? It doesn't have to be perfect. All right, this is good enough. I would be happy with this, right? This gives me exactly what I want. This looks far better to, let me just turn off the thirds guide here. Let me go back to the original camera here. That's the original pose, right? That's the original pose here. Now compare it to this one here. Which one looks more dynamic, more interesting, has more drama, gravitas to it? This one does, right? This one looks far more interesting. As you looking at this camera, you're thinking like, who is she pointing at? What is she pointing at? Why she got that look? And why is it the camera looking upright? It's giving her power, right? Why has she got power over this person she's looking at? Whereas this one here, it's a side-on view. It doesn't give you that drama or anything. So this is me again improving, right? Looking at my old artwork, seeing where I can improve it. So when I do create, obviously I've used foreshortening in book 2, but when I do create book 3, then there will be more of this foreshortening effect where it is applicable in the story. All right, it's not always going to be in there. So that's my thinking there. So here it is, number 6 here. Not bad, right? It looks pretty good. I like the way this looks, right? It looks more intimidating as well. So I can push that a bit more. Let's say I can go to like 28, let's say. See how ridiculous it kind of starts to look. That doesn't look too bad, right? She's pointing, the finger is a lot bigger. Looking, adding more gravitas again to scene. That looks okay. Might be looking a bit too big there, that finger, I don't know. So 28, 30 might be the ideal kind of like focal length for this particular scene. So that's me going through it. Again, I'm using the rotation. The camera is looking up to give that the drama here, to add to the power of this character here. Let me show you what I came up with. So this is as I did it on the fly with you, what I did earlier. So again, one I did when I had more time. So the camera number 5 will show you this. So that's camera number 5. Let me just hide this here. This is camera number 5. Not too dissimilar from camera number 6, the angle here. Maybe this is more extreme focal length. I believe it is. So camera 5 uses a focal length of 30 here. So this is what it looks like. Let me just do a render here to show you what it looks like. This is what it looks like. Now obviously the character's eyes, you can't see the eyes or face or anything because I haven't got my catch light. And then I'm just going to turn on the light here that I created, which is usually just a primitive sphere. I've made it emissive and I've added some values to it to give it the catch light. I'll probably move this a bit more to the left. But this is how I get the look on the character's face. So we can see the eyes, we can see the realism in the eyes. We can see the sweat as well because obviously they were training. So this looks far superior to what I had earlier, which is basically this here. Right, looks better to that. Better than that. Adds more, again, like I said, drama, and definitely adds more to the storytelling. And one last example here of the book 2 cover here for Tiger Dragon Concerts. This is book 2, which is a recent book that I finished. Here we've got foreshortening here that I've used to add drama again, to make a very mundane pose interesting. So here we have Ayame here with the expression on her face. She's going into a bag here. She's putting her hand in. And what I've done is I have done the foreshortening effect on this particular hand here. So what I've done here is change that focal length in order to make the hand bigger, because she's adding depth, right? Making this bag here look deeper, right? So where the camera's inside, we're giving that bag more depth to show that the bag has got depth inside, and therefore obviously this is making this actual front page more interesting, this more book cover more interesting. The expression obviously adds to the book cover as well. Ayame's like expression here, she's putting her hand in there, what is she thinking, right? So it's giving you more information in terms of the storytelling here. So this is what I did with the foreshortening technique. I've used it more actually in book 2 because I've started to learn it just before book 2. Actually, I was starting to learn more and more about foreshortening, and then I started to see it everywhere. It's like when you learn something, you see it everywhere, right? It becomes part of your knowledge bank. So I see foreshortening everywhere now. When I'm watching something, it'll be there. It'll be there, especially in anime and manga. I'll just see it everywhere. When I'm reading manga, I'll see it there. I'll be like, oh, I see what you did there. You used it there to great effect. So it becomes part of your knowledge bank. If you found this video helpful, don't forget to hit the like button. And don't forget to leave a comment down below. Let me know where you're going to use foreshortening, how you're going to use it, or if you're going to use it at all in your artwork. I'd like to know. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button as well so you don't miss out any more great videos like this. They're going to help you to become a better artist. And my final ask for you is to go check out our Kickstarter campaign for Tiger Dragon The Rebirth. Link is in the description down below. Link will also be in the pinned comments as well. Go hit that link. Go check it out. If you want a heroic story that's going to entertain you, empower you, inspire you, Tiger Dragon The Rebirth is for you. Go and hit that sign up button. Go and get notified so you don't miss out when we go live, and get yourself a heroic story that's going to entertain you, empower you, inspire you. And until the next video, always be learning.